Welcome to Magical Bedtime Tales. Tonight, we'll take you on a gentle journey through the story of Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village surrounded by green fields and soft hills, there lived a kind and gentle girl named Ella. Her laughter was like music, and her heart was as warm as a cozy fire in winter. She lived happily with her mother and father, who loved her dearly. They would spend long afternoons in the garden, picking flowers, chasing butterflies, and making up silly songs. Her mother always told her, "Kindness is your greatest magic, my sweet Ella." But one cold winter, a heavy silence fell upon their home. Ella's mother grew very sick. She held Ella close and whispered, "Be brave, little star. Even when things feel dark, keep your light shining." With a gentle kiss on Ella's forehead, her mother closed her eyes and became one with the stars. Ella cried under the same sky her mother used to smile at. Time passed, and though her heart still ached, Ella tried to stay kind and hopeful. Her father, wanting Ella to have someone to care for her, married a woman from the city. This woman had 2 daughters of her own, tall, proud, and always frowning. At first, Ella hoped they could be a family. She smiled and shared her things, but they only laughed at her, wrinkled their noses, and called her names. "Look at her old dress," said the older stepsister. "She smells like the fireplace," said the younger. They started calling her Cinderella because she was always covered in cinders from cleaning the fireplace. Her stepmother didn't stop them. In fact, she made Ella sleep in the attic and do all the chores in the house. Scrub the floors, wash the dishes, carry the buckets, clean the stepsisters' messy rooms every day. But Cinderella didn't complain. She remembered her mother's words. So she smiled through the ash on her cheeks, and when no one was looking, she would hum little songs to herself. She had no jewels, no fancy shoes, and no silk dresses. But she had something better, a kind heart, and a dream that one day something wonderful would find her. When her work was done, she would sit by the fire with her little friends, mice, birds, and a big orange cat named Buttons. The mice squeaked jokes and made her laugh. The birds brought her tiny wildflowers. And Buttons, though lazy and slow, always curled up beside her to keep her warm. "Don't worry," she whispered to them. "One day, life will change. We just have to wait." Outside, the seasons danced. Spring bloomed, summer sang, autumn painted the trees gold, and still Cinderella cleaned, cooked, and carried. One morning, as Cinderella was hanging clothes on the line, a royal messenger rode into the village. His trumpet echoed through the air as he read a golden scroll. "By order of the king, a royal ball shall be held at the castle. All young ladies are invited. The prince shall choose a bride." The whole town buzzed with excitement. Dresses were being sewn, shoes were polished, and flowers braided into hair. Cinderella's stepsisters jumped up and down. "We're going to the ball," they cried. "I will wear my green silk. I'll wear diamonds." Even Cinderella's eyes sparkled. "Maybe I can go too," she whispered. But when she asked, her stepmother laughed. "You? To the royal ball? In that old rag? You'd embarrass us." The stepsisters snorted. "Stay home and clean, Cinder Girl. That's all you're good for." Still, Cinderella helped them get ready. She brushed their hair, tied their ribbons, and even mended a torn hem with trembling fingers. She watched as their carriage rolled away toward the glowing castle. Then, the world was quiet again. Cinderella sat by the cold fireplace. Her dress was stained with soot, her hands covered in thread. her heart heavy with sadness. She looked out at the stars and whispered, "Mother, can you hear me? I tried to be kind. I really did. But tonight, I wish I could dance. Just once." A soft breeze touched her cheek. And then something strange happened. A warm, golden light floated into the room. It shimmered and sparkled, growing brighter until, with a little pop, a tiny woman with twinkling eyes appeared in front of her. She wore a gown made of moonlight and stars, and her hair shimmered like silver threads. "Hello, Cinderella," the woman said kindly. Who are you?" Cinderella asked, eyes wide. "I'm your fairy godmother, darling, and I believe you have a dance to attend." Cinderella blinked. "But I have no dress, no shoes, no carriage. I don't even have time." The fairy godmother smiled and lifted her wand. With a gentle flick, the air sparkled around her. A torn dress became a glowing gown of silver and blue. Her old shoes turned to shining glass slippers. A pumpkin in the yard became a golden carriage. Mice turned into horses. Buttons, the cat stretched, yawned, and turned into a sleepy coachman with a soft furry beard. Cinderella twirled, eyes shining. It's beautiful." The fairy godmother touched her gently and said, "You must be home before the clock strikes 12. After that, the magic will fade." Cinderella nodded. "I understand." She stepped into the carriage. The horses neighed softly, the wheels spun, and off she went into the starlit night, toward the castle, in a moment she would never forget. The stars sparkled above the kingdom, and the castle stood tall and bright, like a diamond lit from within. Cinderella sat inside the golden carriage, her hands gently resting on her lap, her heart fluttering like butterfly wings. Her dress shimmered like moonlight. Her glass slippers sparkled with every tiny movement. And for the first time in a long while, she felt like someone special. As the carriage rolled through the gates, the guards bowed. The doors of the palace opened wide, and music floated into the air like a soft breeze of violins and flutes. Inside, the ballroom glowed with golden chandeliers, walls covered in roses, and floors so shiny they looked like mirrors. Ladies in gowns spun and twirled. Lords in fine suits bowed and laughed. The prince stood at the top of the stairs, smiling kindly as he greeted each guest. And then, everything stopped. Cinderella stepped into the ballroom. The crowd went silent for a moment. Even the music seemed to pause. Her beauty wasn't just in her gown or shoes. It was in the gentleness of her smile, the kindness in her eyes, the softness in her step. The prince saw her, and in that moment, he saw no one else. He walked down the steps slowly, like he was walking through a dream. "Would you care to dance?" he asked. Cinderella nodded shyly. "Yes, I'd like that very much." They danced under the stars and chandeliers. They didn't speak much, just soft smiles, light steps, and the feeling that something magical was happening, something that didn't need big words. The prince couldn't take his eyes off her, and Cinderella, she felt like she was floating. Not because of the dress, or the castle, or even the music, but because someone finally saw her not as a servant, not as a girl in rags, but as someone whole, bright, and beautiful. All around them, people whispered, "Who is she?" But no one knew. Not even the stepmother or stepsisters, they didn't recognize her at all. The night danced on. The fairy godmother's magic wrapped Cinderella in warmth and light. She danced, laughed, and felt truly happy for the first time in forever. But time! Oh, time moves even when we wish it would stop. Suddenly, the clock tower began to chime. Dong. Cinderella turned her head. Dong. Her heart skipped. Dong. It was midnight. She gasped. Oh no! I must go! The prince reached for her hand. Wait, please! I don't even know your name! But she couldn't stay. She ran down the steps, her dress flowing behind her like silver wind. Dong! One slipper slipped off her foot, but she couldn't turn back. She had to keep going. Dong! She reached the carriage. The horses neighed. Buttons. The coachman meowed. Yes, he had turned back into a cat mid-run. The pumpkin wobbled and shrank. And just as the final dong rang through the sky, Cinderella was gone. She stood in the middle of the forest path. No dress, no carriage. Just ash on her face, dirt on her feet, and one glass slipper in her hand. She looked up at the sky. Thank you, she whispered. Because for one night, she had danced. For one night, she had been seen. For one night, she had been free. Back at the palace, the prince found the glass slipper lying on the stairs. He held it gently, like a tiny piece of a dream. She ran from me, he said softly, but I'll find her, no matter how far, no matter how long it takes. In the days that followed, the prince sent out his royal messengers with one simple task. Find the girl who fits this glass slipper, for she is the one my heart has chosen. From village to village they went, from big cities to little towns. Every young lady in the land tried on the slipper, but it was always too tight, or too loose, or not quite right. But the prince didn't give up. He believed in the girl who had danced with stars in her eyes and kindness in her smile. Back in her small cottage, Cinderella had returned to scrubbing floors and feeding the chickens. The night of the ball felt like a faraway dream. Her stepsisters bragged about how the prince had smiled at them. Her stepmother hissed, "He didn't choose either of you because he was looking for someone simple, not someone special." They laughed. Cinderella stayed silent. She had her memory and her one glass slipper hidden under the loose floorboard near her bed. She took it out sometimes, holding it like a soft light in the dark. Then one morning, hoofbeats rang through the village. A golden carriage, royal guards, a velvet pillow with a shining slipper. The prince's men had come. The stepsisters screamed and tripped over each other, trying to reach the front door. "I'm first!" "No, I am. Stop pushing." The guards bowed and asked politely, "Please try on the slipper." One by one, the stepsisters squeezed their feet. They pushed, pinched, and even tried stuffing their toes. But nothing worked. "It's too small," said one. "It's broken," cried the other. "No," the guard replied gently. "It's simply not meant for you." Just then, Cinderella peeked around the corner. The guard saw her and asked, "May she try?" Her stepmother laughed coldly. "She's just a servant. She didn't go to the ball." But the guard shook his head. "All are welcome to try." Cinderella stepped forward, calm and quiet. She sat down, lifted her foot, and gently slid it into the glass slipper. It fit perfectly. The room went still. The stepsisters gasped. The stepmother dropped her teacup. And Cinderella smiled softly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the other slipper, the one she had kept hidden all this time. The guards bowed deeply. "Your Highness awaits." The golden carriage rolled through the forest, soft wheels spinning on the mossy path. Inside, Cinderella sat quietly, her heart fluttering like tiny wings. Her hands trembled just a little, resting on the sparkling folds of her dress. She still wore the glass slippers, the very same ones that had carried her into the night of magic. Now, they carried her into something even more precious, a new beginning. She glanced out the window. Birds flew above the trees, and sun peeked gently through the leaves, as if the sky itself was smiling at her. When the carriage reached the palace, the gates opened wide. The guards bowed. The wind carried soft music through the air. And there at the top of the steps stood the prince. He wasn't surrounded by trumpets or grand titles. He didn't carry a sword or wear a heavy crown. He simply waited, eyes full of hope, like a boy who had finally found the last page of a favorite story. Cinderella stepped down slowly. They stood face to face once more. No more secrets, no more spells, no more rushing against the clock. "It's you," the prince said softly, almost like a whisper. "I was afraid you were only a dream." Cinderella smiled, the kind of smile that comes from somewhere deep, the kind that grows after 100 small kindnesses and one unforgettable night. "I thought the same," she replied. The king and queen stepped forward, watching them closely. They didn't ask about her parents or her past. They didn't ask about the ashes on her dress or the calluses on her hands. They looked into her eyes and saw something rare. Grace, courage, light. The queen stepped forward and said kindly, "The world needs hearts like yours, my dear. Welcome home." And just like that, Cinderella wasn't just a guest in the palace anymore. She belonged. The palace walls, once so grand and far away, now felt soft and warm. The rooms filled with laughter, birdsong, and fresh flowers. And Cinderella, she didn't become a queen who sat on a throne just to wear a crown. She became a queen who listened to her people, who smiled with the cooks in the kitchen, who played hide and seek with children in the gardens, who fed stray animals and planted flowers where weeds once grew. The mice and birds, her oldest friends, had their own little home in her chambers. And Buttons the cat? He napped on royal pillows as if he'd always belonged there. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, the prince found Cinderella sitting by the royal pond, feeding crumbs to a family of ducks. He sat beside her and said, "Do you know why I searched for you?" Cinderella looked up, surprised. "Because I fit the slipper?" He shook his head gently. "No, because when you danced with me, I felt peaceful, not excited, not nervous, just like I was where I was meant to be." Cinderella's eyes softened. She understood. Love, real love, doesn't shout or sparkle. It whispers. It stays. It feels like home. News of their wedding spread across the land. But this was not a wedding filled with gold or glitter. It was filled with laughter, songbirds, and a promise that kindness would always have a seat at the table. People from every village were invited: bakers, farmers, little children who had never seen a palace. Even Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters were there, not in silk and pearls, but as quiet guests, watching from the back. They had expected to be turned away, but Cinderella, in her gown of soft blue and white flowers, greeted them with a calm smile. "I forgive you," she said. And those 3 words, simple and soft, were the most powerful gift of all. The night of the wedding was quiet and full of stars. As Cinderella stood on the palace balcony, looking up at the moon, the prince came beside her and held her hand. "Do you ever miss the old days?" he asked gently. She smiled. Sometimes I miss the garden and the way the firelight danced in the attic. I even miss the squeaky floorboards. But now, she added, I have new things to love too. He nodded. And this time, no one will make you sleep in the attic. They both laughed softly, their voices floating into the night air. Below them, the kingdom rested in peace. The glass slippers were kept in a velvet box, no longer needed. Cinderella now wore soft shoes that let her walk freely through the palace gardens, into villages, and among people who had grown to adore her. And every evening, just as the sky turned dark, she would sit by her window and whisper stories to the stars, just like her mother once did. She told them of the mice who dreamed of cheese castles, of fairy godmothers with sleepy wands, of a boy who held her hand like it was something fragile and precious, and of a girl with ash on her face, who became more than anyone expected. Years later, when children asked how she became queen, she didn't start with the ball or the slipper. She would smile and begin like this. Once there was a girl who always believed in kindness, even when the world didn't believe in her. And that's where all the best stories begin. Thank you for listening to Magical Bedtime Tales. May your dreams be full of wonder. Good night.